Hello and welcome to Avernus Explained, and I'm sorry if this has attracted some Dungeons and Dragons fans, but that's not what we'll be talking about today. Avernus was a what-if audio series I was creating to explore the idea of an audiobook style series based on necromorphs versus the flood type scenario. So in this video I will be going through the following stages. 1. The idea. 2. The story. 3. The development. 4. The scripting. 5. The problems and issues. And then finally, 6. The collapse. So without further ado, let's begin. In the beginning, I was watching some of Rono Gaming and Hidden Experience videos on Necromorphs and the Flood, along with their collaborative video Necromorphs vs. the Flood, which deadly enemy would reign supreme, but was kinda disappointed, not because of the outcome or conclusion to both sides, but because they went into statistics, not really delving into a what-if scenario. My opinion is the same as it was back then, and it's in agreement with the message I took away from it. Either side could win, it just depends on which side reaches their peak potential. It wasn't until I saw a video from Installation 00 that the idea of Avernus started taking root in my mind, and the video was how it would feel to be infected by the flood or something like that. However, the first act of the video was the segment that really brought it home for me, and in that first segment I got a sense of horror within Halo, and believe me, that's not an easy feat for me to feel uneasy. Here, take a listen.
You stop, just short of touching distance, when you notice a set of eyes looking back at you. They look surprised, shocked maybe, but something doesn't sit right. They're not looking at you, they're looking past you. You glance over your shoulder to follow their gaze and see nothing but across the camp. No movement, no apparent threat. You turn back, confused, and look into the eyes again. That's when you notice it. They're the wrong way up. The eyebrows are on the bottom and the nose is facing skyward. The eyes' focus slowly drifts from something akin to a 1,000-yard stare and focus on you. The expression the eyes give off now shifts to something like fear, horror, even sadness. Then the person makes a noise. But it isn't a noise, it's more of a gurgled choke. Then it hits you. You're stood behind this person, not in front of them, and yet their eyes are looking straight at you. Your brain suddenly makes sense of what you're looking at. The person's neck has been bent backward at an impossible angle, the head now hanging limp down its back. You nearly stumble backwards in surprise, and the commotion draws its attention. The thing turns around, and from the chest of this humanoid form there are now a dozen tentacle-like sensing appendages whipping the air, like as many forked tongues of a snake tasting the air for your presence. The body is swollen and tumorous, and 3 meter-long tentacles now hang from its left arm. You're frozen in fear when the creature bellows a twisting, ear-splitting cry and whip-cracks its tentacles across your chest.
After a week of listening again and again, I tried looking for something else, attempting to create a story linking between Halo's Flood to Dead Space's Necromorphs, or even the Marker. However, I couldn't find much to satisfy my hunger for content, and that's where I got the idea to create my own story, something that I would want to listen to, and that's where the idea came from. However, I soon asked myself, what am I going to name this? I started thinking of what people would describe a war between 2 horrifically demonized monsters from the world of the undead, and I thought back to Doctor Who with a quote stating, "The war turned into hell," and I looked into names that meant hell, and soon came across Avernus, and that's where Avernus's roots eventually came from. With the name and idea growing in my mind, I turned to 2 individuals from Hidden Experience Discord to help me in the theorizing process of the story. At first, the Marker was going to be reclaimed and taken aboard a unitologist's ship, which would end up starting a necromorph outbreak, and within the rampage of the monstrosities, the shock point drive would become damaged and then explode, forcing the ship out of shock space, which tears, in theory, a hole in the fabric of reality reality, allowing the ship to drift from the Dead Space universe into the Halo universe. However, upon writing the script, I eventually changed the story to be set within the lore of both universes to give an actual time of when the story has taken place, or at least some idea of it. That's why in the episode or chapter 1 you can hear the captain recall the Sprawl's infestation and Davies and Mills talking about the invasion of Reach. What more could be done, sir? We are in sharp space. Guards are all over the ship, especially at the special ordnance storage room. What could possibly go wrong? The first officer added. The captain gives the first officer a stern look and says, "You haven't been in a necromorph outbreak before, have you?" The first officer shakes his head. "I was refueling the ship at the Sprawl. The next day they appeared from nowhere, misshapen creatures. They were my colleagues not too long ago. I could still see their faces or what remained of them, twisted and mangled into their new forms. They pushed us back. We had nowhere to go except back into the Titus. We sealed the blast doors and began takeoff procedures. While we were doing as such, other ships were taking off and stuttering in space and colliding with each other, as if those things had gotten on board, slaughtering the pilots and crew members. We could still hear the scraping outside, trying to pry open the blast doors, and that was it. We roared the engines up and made our escape, trying our best to make our way around the broken debris the ships and buildings had left behind. The necromorphs had turned a thriving metropolis into a quiet, broken shell of its former self in a matter of minutes, if not hours. They kill, assimilate the bodies, they kill, rinse and repeat, all because someone wanted more power. "Alright, Marines, once you have everything with you, wait by the convoy while I collect the inspector," Davies, the squad leader, says. "Sir, yes, sir," the Marines shout back. Davies heads down to the inspector's tent, passing another squad leader, Mills. "So have you seen some of the new recruits, Mills?" Davies asks. "Yeah, seems like they're fresh out of boot camp," Mills replies. "Seems like we're the old men now, Mills. Feels like yesterday we were just jumping on a pelican from Reach to come here," Davies replies. "Yeah, sad thing that. The Coveys have invaded the place now." Don't worry, Davies, it's just a small strike force. Guarantee that a team of Spartans or ODSTs will capture their flagship and destroy it in no time. We'll see you home again," Mills says. "You've read the reports?" Davies asks. "Well, no, but the commander has," Mills says. "Guess it pays to be the commander's son," Davies remarks. "What do you mean by that?" Mills asks. The story would take place on a shield world similar to one in Halo 4 and Halo Wars. I got this idea from theorizing about having it taken place on a massive planet-sized space station, like if the Death Star was in Halo. But thought a shield world would be more fitting, tying into Halo's lore more than a giant space station would, even though it is an interesting idea. The shield world would also be named Avernus, as referenced in Chapter 2 when Davies and his squad travelled to the bridge of the crashed ship. However, the story would be improvised upon each release of each chapter, meaning when a chapter is uploaded, I write the next one, which would prove to be an unforgiving mistake, one that I would call the perils of rushing passion. The first stage of the story was to plant in the minds of the listeners that no character would be safe and to expect the unexpected. With the deaths of the characters Mills, Davies, Commander Mills, and Alexis, that was to show the audience that everyone or anyone is on the food chain, especially so quick after starting the series. The second stage, the Ascensionist arc of the story, was to give a bit more of a elusive and tension towards the plot and to set up the arrival of the feeders. The original idea was that the Ascensionists would follow someone known as the Father, someone under the influence of the marker, driven insane by seeing his deceased daughter spring back into life, even talking to him as if she was an adult rather than a child. The Father would preach that eating the flesh of the necromorphs would allow them to access the next stage of their evolution and become like the necromorphs without transforming into them, gaining their abilities and their heightened senses. I ended up changing this because we've already seen what happens when you eat the dead flesh of a necromorph, so instead the scientists would be creating a vial for a cure for this dilemma, but unfortunately they create a vial for the regenerator or hunter or ubermorph to appear in the story. However, that is where I ended the series, unfortunately due to poor ratings and time constraints and disappointing results in finding competent voice actors. At the end of the project, I had only 5 voice actors helping me to make this fan project into a reality. Future arcs of the story would have been to introduce the Sentinels, explaining the flood to the Marines and perhaps even becoming a greater threat to them. An arc bringing the gravemind into the story was also planned, where the gravemind would ask the humans for assistance in defeating the marker and the necromorphs, which would end with an agreement to shut down Sentinel control and to destroy the marker before convergence could begin. The last arc would be if a solution could be made to destroy both parties or deadly factions using the Shield World systems themselves, escaping their grisly fate behind them. While in development, I made the first 5 parts a narrator-focused audio series to give myself a bit more story building room. However, after Christmas, I wanted to transform the series into an actual audio book, having more of a focus on the voice actors, allowing the characters' reactions and voices to shape the story rather than just one. However, with this change came a time challenge. With the previous version of storytelling, it would take me a week to make a chapter. With this new version, it would take 4. Within development, I had to get a second mind into the inner circle of this project to rewrite out the narrations to help guide the viewer or listener, focusing the story when the characters could not. As I said, the scripting was done after an episode was released, which led up to the eventual disaster and cancellation of the series. The scripting had gone through a few variations, however not to the point of the actors having a clear-cut view of the situation, which in future will be something that needs to be improved upon if I decide on bringing the series back to the channel. Avernus took off the ground pretty well, considering it was a fan project, with only myself voicing the characters in Chapter 1, and along the course of the show evolving into how I wanted to present the audio series. Unfortunately, with this project, the problems came in Chapter 3 with Alexis and her voice actor. However, I still feel I was rushing to find a female voice within the show, but the only one could not give me an emotional response in her voice, prompting myself to rewrite Alexis's character to die in the next chapter. I would tell her that I need you to shout as if you are in a battle to the death, with her only being able to muster a monotoned and exhausted Alexis, which is why I had to kill the character. In my opinion, this is a zero-profit project and with no money involved, but I am still wanting the series to be something I can be proud of, something I can call quality content, and something that I would want to listen to. But she just didn't seem to care about any of that at all. And to be honest, when she told me of how directors on YouTube had treated her in the past, I felt sorry for her. Not the reason I got her into the series, mind you, but I did. But I can see now why she says that everyone she has worked with are all mean to her, and that's because she cannot follow direction well, especially when I gave her a second chance with her line being 1, 2, 3, lift. Okay, set him down. In the brackets it would say, as you say lift, sound as if you are lifting another person, so sound as if there is some physical assertion going on. I told everyone to read the script through, practice, and to wait until I can call them so we can come to a better understanding of how I want them to sound. She decided to screw that noise, and did all of the lines without effort or merit, and in a monotone voice, not even following the clear directions I had given to her in the script. I gave her the criticism, telling her it's not good enough because I was angry at her for not respecting me enough to actually do as she was told. I gave her another chance thinking it was a fluke, but obviously not. She soon blocked me on Discord and made sure I couldn't contact her because she couldn't handle my criticism, which could have led her to improve upon herself and her voices and her skills as a voice actress. I ended up with the same thing with a voice actor I met over an audition for a fan FNAF game, and made sure I gave him a better response as to not provoke what happened previously, and he ended up leaving in the same way, not even a message like, how dare I not accept his work as the god's grace, or something like that. Other problems came up with another voice actor not having time to record due to work, which is something I can respect, especially as that guy is amazing at what he does. Ted, if you're listening, you're 1 in a million. Honestly, do not know how he does it, but he did all of the Marine, ODST, and other minor roles in chapters 1 through 5. Unfortunately, those were the reasons I ended up voicing most characters, and sometimes voicing as if to have a conversation with myself in chapter 6 and a couple in chapter 7. With all my concerns, troubles, and issues with this project, I started worrying and feeling down about the series, feeling as if I would never be able to escape the problems with it. I ended the series due to time restraints mostly, which I do struggle juggling YouTube and work. ratings did contribute to it. Not a lot of people seemed to be interested in the series, and finally came the issues I just talked about. Fragile actors who couldn't due to life getting in the way, and others wanting to help but obviously couldn't due to having another role already. The combination of these issues made me believe that I wouldn't have enough time to do all the video ideas I wanted to, so instead I chose what seemed to be popular, and that was my documentary style videos. And so I made my decision to end the conflict, the war, bringing an end to the dual outbreak, or at least hitting the pause button on it. See, I may return to Avernus when I have enough time to create a script. However, this time I am going to create something better, like putting seasons instead of just chapters. So it'll go along the lines of Avernus Season 1, Episode 1, Season 2, Episode 1, Season 3, Episode 1, so on and so forth. You know, after a major remodeling. However, until then, let me know if you found this story interesting in the comments section, and I always look forward to hearing from you. It actually gives me a reason to get out of bed in the morning. Give the video a like if you think it deserves some loving, and sign up to join the British Alliance today by subscribing and ringing the notification bell, and I will see you all on the front lines, and have a good one.